The origins of the Saudi royal family, known as the House of Saud, reach back nearly 3 centuries to the heart of the Arabian Peninsula. Understanding their early history is to step into a world of tribal alliances, shifting powers, and the profound influence of both geography and religion on the rise of a dynasty that would one day shape not only Arabia, but would exert global influence as the ruling force in modern-day Saudi Arabia. The roots of the House of Saud begin in the central region of Najd, an area defined by its vast deserts, challenging terrain, and fiercely independent Bedouin tribes. Around the early 18th century, in the small town of Diriyah near present-day Riyadh, lived Mohammed bin Saud. He was the chief of a relatively modest but ambitious clan, part of the larger Aniza tribe, themselves prominent among the people of Najd. The settled life of Diriyah's inhabitants contrasted with the wandering ways of the desert Bedouins, affording Mohammed bin Saud the stability to look beyond mere survival and toward the possibility of true authority. It was during this period, around 1744, that a fateful meeting would sow the seeds for the dynasty's ascendancy. This meeting occurred between Mohammed bin Saud and Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab, a religious reformer whose ideas would come to define the spiritual and ideological foundation of the Saudi state. Ibn Abd al-Wahhab, born in what is now the Al Uyayna area in 1703, was disillusioned by what he saw as deviations from the pure teachings of Islam. Drawing inspiration from the earliest days of the faith, he called for a return to what he described as the true monotheism, advocating for the elimination of practices he viewed as innovations or superstitions. When Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab arrived in Diriyah, he sought a protector, someone with both the will and the resources to advance his vision. Mohammed bin Saud saw an opportunity in alliance, religious legitimacy in exchange for political and military support. Thus, a mutually beneficial relationship was born, bound by a formal pact. Mohammed bin Saud would support and propagate the Wahhabi doctrine, and in turn, Ibn Abdul Wahhab would religiously legitimize the Saud family's rule. This fusion of religious authority and political power provided the ideological and organizational glue that would hold together the burgeoning Saudi state. With this blessing, the House of Saud set out on a series of campaigns to unify Najd and its surrounding territories under their emerging emirate. The religious fervor of the Wahhabi movement provided an impetus for expansion, and the message of strict monotheism resonated with wide segments of the population, particularly those disillusioned with the religious establishment and rival local rulers. Within a few decades, the Saud-Wahhabi alliance had brought significant portions of Central Arabia under their sway, overcoming local opposition through a mixture of negotiation and force. Perhaps one of the most pivotal moments in early Saudi history was the conquest of Riyadh, which would later become the heart of their realm. The sons and grandsons of Mohammed bin Saud continued the campaign, consolidating control as their reputation and infamy spread across the Arabian Peninsula. The House of Saud's growing influence, aligned with their commitment to Wahhabism, inevitably drew the ire of established powers, notably the Ottoman Empire, which wielded religious and political authority over much of the Islamic world, including the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. By the early 19th century, the first Saudi state had stretched into the Hijaz, home to the sacred sanctuaries of Islam. The taking of Mecca in 1803 by Saud bin Abdulaziz, a direct descendant of Mohammed bin Saud, was a bold assertion of Saudi power and Wahhabi influence. This pressed the Ottoman sultans into action. They dispatched Muhammad Ali, the ambitious governor of Egypt, who mounted a military campaign to crush the Saudis and reassert Ottoman sovereignty over Arabia's holy sites. The Ottoman-backed Egyptian army, better equipped and far better organized than their Saudi and tribal opponents, launched a series of devastating campaigns. The Saudis' ambitious expansion came to an abrupt halt when Diriyah was besieged and destroyed in 1818. The Saudi leader Abdullah bin Saud was captured, taken to Istanbul and executed, seemingly marking the end of the first Saudi state. However, the House of Saud was not to be erased from history so easily. Though the family's remaining members scattered, they retained both their tribal loyalty and the enduring alliance with Wahhabism. The seeds of their restoration had been sown deep within Najd's harsh lands. By 1824, Turki bin Abdullah, a determined survivor and descendant of the founder, gathered supporters, recaptured Riyadh, and established what is known as the Second Saudi State. This period was marked by renewed challenges from both within and without, as rival families, personal ambitions, and foreign influences continuously threatened Saudi rule. The Second Saudi State lacked the firm grip and sweeping vision of the first. Nonetheless, it persisted for several decades, weathering intrigues, coups, and foreign intervention. The power struggles during this time shaped the future character of the Saudi leadership: pragmatic, adaptive, and fiercely resilient. Eventually, this era too ended in turmoil when the House of Rashid, a northern rival family based in Ha'il, overpowered the Saudis, forcing them into temporary exile. It was from this exile that Abdulaziz Al Saud, also known simply as Ibn Saud, would emerge in the early 20th century to found modern Saudi Arabia. Yet it is impossible to understand his meteoric rise without the context of the preceding generations. Their ability to forge religious and tribal alliances, their relentless drive to unify the disparate regions of Arabia, and, above all, their deep-rooted connection to the Wahhabi movement, which continues to frame the kingdom's religious identity to this day. Thus, the tale of the Saudi royal family's origins is one of enduring ambition, strategic alliances, and a persistent intertwining of politics and faith. From a modest oasis on the edge of the desert, through triumph, defeat, and revival, the House of Saud laid the foundations for a kingdom that, centuries later, stands as a powerhouse not only in the Middle East, but on the world stage, grounded in traditions established long before the world ever knew the name of Saudi Arabia.